Today I'm going to show you how to create a character for BECMI or Basic Dungeons & Dragons from the original Players Manual Red Box. Now this will not include any of the optional features that you would find in the Rule Cyclopedia, just the original Red Box. Now in order to create your character today, you're going to need three things. You're going to need a six-sided die or three six-sided die. If you would like to expedite things, you're going to need a character sheet. Now the one that I'm using today can be found on a website called Jasper's Rantings. I will put a link in the description below, but if you don't want to use that one, there are plenty that you can find just by simply doing a search on Google. And the third thing that you're going to need are a few more videos in this playlist. As we won't be diving into the characters today as far as the classes are concerned, I have plenty of other videos that will help you with that. Be sure to check out my BECMI playlist. And along this journey of character creation, I'm also going to explain what each of the options mean, and we'll go over this. This is going to be a full introduction. So let's get started. Now, step one in creating a first level character in Basic Dungeons & Dragons is to roll for ability scores. There are 6 ability scores: Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. And we will roll a six-sided die 3 times, or 3 six-sided dice, in order to determine what these attributes are. Now, since we are rolling 3 six-sided dice, the lowest number that we could get would be a 3, and the highest number we can get would be an 18. So our first die roll is going to be a 14. Now our 14 goes into Strength, and Strength is our ability score that measures our physical might. It's going to affect the amount of damage that a character can do with hand-to-hand weapons such as swords and clubs, and thrown weapons such as spears and knives. In addition to damage, Strength also determines how easy it is for us to hit a monster or an opponent. Now for each of our ability scores, there is a bonus and penalty chart, and 9 through 12 is the average. Since we have a 14, that is going to be a +1. So we will get +1 to hit a monster and +1 on our damage. Our next ability score we're going to roll for is Intelligence, and the result is a 13. Now in Basic Dungeons & Dragons, a high intelligence will allow you to learn more languages, and a low intelligence will give you either trouble reading or writing or speaking. The next number that we roll is a 6. Now if we look at our bonus and penalty chart, a 6 is going to give us a -1 to our Wisdom. Now Wisdom doesn't have a lot of uses in Basic Dungeons & Dragons, but it does affect our saving throws versus spells. And we'll talk about saving throws in a little bit, but I'm going to put a -1 over here under spells and saving throws so that I remember to add that modifier. The next number that we rolled is a 16, and that is for Dexterity, and a 16 is going to give us a +2. Now Dexterity is a very useful ability score. It applies to our nimbleness and grace, and it affects our abilities to wield missile or thrown weapons. Now that's going to include weapons such as bows, crossbows, and knives. Dexterity also makes it harder for our enemies to hit our character, giving us a better armor class, and we'll talk about armor class in a little bit. The next number that I rolled is a 13. A 13 is going to be a +1. Now this is for Constitution, which measures our character's physical health and vigor. Now our hit points are adjusted by our Constitution, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. Our final ability score is rolled, and it is a 12. Now the 12 is going to go into Charisma, and Charisma is the measure of our character's personality and presence. It will have an ability score adjustment or penalty that will take effect during social encounters if we're trying to talk to non-player characters or NPCs, or if we're trying to do some type of trade or buying or bargaining, or even if we're trying to hire folks to try to help us. Charisma will help in all of those social settings. Now that part 1 is done with our ability scores being rolled, it's time for us to choose our character class. Now there are 7 different classes to choose from. There's 4 human classes, which is Fighter, Cleric, Magic User, and Thief, and there's 3 demi-human classes, the Dwarf, the Elf, and the Halfling. Now we're not going to discuss those in this video, but if you would like some help in choosing your character class, I have 2 different videos, one for humans and one for demi-humans, that you can find in the BECMI playlist. So moving on, I am choosing a fighter, so I will be a level 1 fighter, and I can fill in some of the information at the top of my character sheet. And my first level fighter's name is going to be Ithor. Now, before we move on, just one more note about character classes. The human classes do not have a minimum ability score in order to choose one of those four, but if you want to be a demi-human, there are some minimum requirements, and we'll go over all of those as outlined in the human and demi-human videos, so be sure to check those out. But for a fighter, I do want to have a good strength because it'll help me in melee combat, and I will also get more experience points because if a fighter has good strength, they'll get a percentage more in experience. Now, in step 3 of our character creation, we can exchange some of our ability scores. Now, the way that exchanging ability scores works is we can take 2 points off of one of our ability scores in order to increase our prime requisite by 1 point. Now, our prime requisite is determined by the class that we choose. For a fighter, strength is going to be their prime requisite. That is the ability that they use the most. For a magic user, it would be intelligence. For a cleric, it would be wisdom. For a thief, it would be dexterity. A dwarf also has a prime requisite of strength. An elf has 2, which are strength and intelligence, and a halfling has 2, which are strength and dexterity. Now, here are the rules for exchanging your ability scores. The first rule is your prime requisite, and only that score, can go up 1 point for each 2 points that another ability score goes down. Constitution and charisma points can never be exchanged with others. Dexterity cannot be lowered, but it may be raised if you're playing a thief or a halfling. And then finally, no score can be lowered below 9. If a score is already at 10 or less, it cannot be lowered. So for Ithor, I'm going to lower our intelligence by 2, so that will take it to 11, and increase our strength to 15. Now that we have an 11 intelligence, we can go down 2 more, which will give us an intelligence of 9, and we can increase our strength by 1, which gives us a strength of 16, which is now a +2 modifier, and that will take our intelligence to 0, and that should complete step 3 of our character creation process, because there are no more ability scores that we can increase or lower within the limits. In step 4 of our character creation, we're going to roll for hit points. Now, our character's hit point score represents their ability to survive injury. The higher our hit point score, the more damage we can sustain before dying. Now, if our character's hit points ever reach 0, they will be dead, and they'll either need to be resurrected or we'll have to roll up a new character. Now, as our character progresses in levels, they'll acquire more hit points, giving way to more survivability. Now, each character class has a different specified amount of hit points. Fighters and dwarves being able to roll an 8-sided die for hit points, and the lowest would be magic users and thieves that would only get to roll a d4 when they get to acquire hit points. For our character today, Ithor is going to roll a d8, and we get a 7. Now, this is adjusted by our constitution score, and since our constitution is a 13, which is a +1, we will take that 7, we'll add the 1, and at first level, we will have 8 hit points. Our character is looking pretty good for a first level build. So now let's move on to part 5 and 6. Part 5, we're going to roll for money, so we're going to roll 3 6-sided dice, and we roll a 7, and we're going to multiply that 7 by 10. That is going to give us 70. So we are going to begin the game with 70 gold pieces. Now in part 6, we get to buy equipment. One of the most important things that our fighter is going to need is going to be armor and a weapon. Now granted, 70 gold pieces to start as a first level fighter is not a lot of gold because we do need to invest in our armor, but this is the way that I ended up spending it. For 40 gold pieces, I was able to acquire a chainmail. Now I did not have enough left over by the time I was said and done to get a shield, so after I adventure for the first time with this character, and if this character survives, I will want to go back to the market and pick up a shield. Likewise with the weapons, I was able to pick up a spear for 3 gold pieces. It does a d6 of damage, but I do want a better weapon. I would like to have a sword, and it costs 10 gold pieces, so I will have to go out, adventure, find some gold, and come back to the market in order to pick up a better weapon. But for now, we have a chainmail and a spear, and dream and hope of surviving to get a plate mail, a sword, and a shield at some point. Now the rest of our gold was spent on equipment that will give us food, water, and survivability. 15 gold pieces is going into iron rations because if our first adventure is in a dungeon and we're there overnight, standard rations, which only cost 5 gold pieces, would spoil. So we definitely need food. 15 gold pieces is worth it to have something to eat. I spent 2 gold pieces to have 2 water skins so that we have something to drink. A backpack to carry things in is 5 gold pieces. 6 torches is a gold piece. And a tinderbox to light those torches is 3 gold pieces. In basic Dungeons & Dragons, or BECMI, our human characters cannot see in the dark, so we need a light source. When all is said and done, I have 1 gold piece remaining from the 70 that I started with, and I had that exchange into 9 silver pieces and 10 copper. We are now in step 7 of our character creation process, and the first part of step 7 is to figure out our armor class. So we're going to take a look at the armor class table, and the chainmail that we purchased is going to give us an armor class of 5. But let's not forget, we also have a very good dexterity. We have a +2 in dexterity, and that will affect our armor class. So our armor class with the chainmail by itself is a 5, and with the dexterity bonus, that's going to give us an armor class of 3. That's pretty good for first level. The next part of our character sheet is our 2-hit roll chart. Now this is how combat takes place. As you can see here at the bottom of page 1 of our character sheet, we have the top row which says armor class, and it goes from 9 all the way down to 0, and then the 2-hit roll needed, and that's where we're going to fill in the blanks. Now in BECMI or Red Box Dungeons & Dragons, the higher the armor class, the easier you are to hit. So the worst armor class that you can have is an armor class of 9. And yes, in BECMI with magic items, plate mail, shield, and dexterity, you can get into the negatives as far as armor class is concerned. So now we need to look in the player's handbook or the rules cyclopedia in order to get the numbers to fill in our hit roll chart. If you're doing this at home and making a first level, second level, or third level character, you can just copy what I put here. Now the way that this hit chart works is when we are in combat, we will roll our 20-sided die, and if it's a 10 or higher, we will consult this chart. Let's say we roll a 15, and a 15 means that we would hit a monster or an NPC that has an armor class of 4. But don't forget that we do have a strength that has a +2 adjustment. So if we do roll that 15, we get to add 2. That would make it a 17, which means we would tell the Dungeon Master that we would hit armor class 2, and the Dungeon Master would tell us if we hit or missed a monster. So just one more example for this character in particular, since we have a +2 strength. If I roll a 12, I would add 2. That would give me a 14, which would mean I would tell the Dungeon Master that I hit armor class 5. Now this hit roll chart stays the same for all character classes all the way up to level 3, and then after level 3 they start to get easier to hit the higher armor classes. Now our final portion is we're going to fill in our saving throws. Now a saving throw represents our character's attempt to avoid the effects of some sort of unusual attack. That could be poison, magical spells, the flaming breath of a dragon, and so forth. Now a successful saving throw usually means that the character either sustains a reduced amount of damage or suffers no harmful effect at all, depending on the type of attack. But an unsuccessful saving throw means that the character sustains the full damage or effect of the attack. The saving throw is rolled with a d20, and your Dungeon Master will tell you when a saving throw is needed and which of the saving throws you need to make. Now each character class has their own set of saving throws, so what you're going to see here for the fighter will be different for the other character classes. Now at first level we start with a 12 against poison or death ray. Our fighter has a 13 for magic wands, a 14 for turn to stone or paralysis, a 15 for dragon's breath. Hopefully we don't run into much of that at first level. Now our final saving throw is against spells or magic stabs, and I put a -1 here because I did want to bring up the point that wisdom will affect saving throws against spells. And I apologize, over here on the left, this should be a -1 for a wisdom score of 6. So if our character is told to make a saving throw versus spells, we would subtract 1 from the roll. Now our default number is 16, so for us to make a saving throw versus spells, let's say we roll a 12, we would actually subtract 1 from the roll because of our low wisdom score, so we would roll an 11. And again, since it's not 16 or higher, that means we would fail that saving throw. So those are the saving throws that you will need for your character, and again, you will only need to worry about those when your Dungeon Master prompts you to make a saving throw, and they will let you know which one that you need to succeed on. Now at the bottom of this character sheet, we're going to see a box for experience points. At level 1, we have 0 experience points. Now as our characters go through adventures, we gradually become better and better at what we do. And that is how we gain experience. That could be from defeating monsters, getting awarded for solving puzzles, avoiding traps, good role-playing, and the treasure that we find. Usually every gold piece that you find is worth an experience point. Now once you reach a level that's set by your class, and for a fighter that's going to be 2000, then you get to go to the next level, and that will double for every level that you go afterwards. Now when you level up or go to the next level of your character class, you get more hit points, and you will also want to check your hit roll charts and your saving throw to see if things will get easier or better for you. Now the fighter doesn't have any skills, spells, or abilities, but all of the other character classes do. So now at this point of your character creation, you're going to want to watch either the human or the demi-human videos and see what skills, spells, or abilities, such as the cleric being able to turn undead, the thieves' abilities to remove traps, move silently, and pick locks, or a magic user, elf, or cleric, and what type of spells they would get. Now, after you fill out your character's spells, their skills, and their abilities, there's only 2 more things on this character sheet that might interest you. The first one is alignment. Now, you can fill this in as lawful, neutral, or chaotic. And alignment serves as a guideline for the behavior of your character. Now, some groups that you play in may have this as an optional thing or may not use alignment at all. Be sure to discuss that with your Dungeon Master. But if you do use alignment, then they are broken down as follows. A lawful character will fight to protect their group regardless of the danger. The character will not run away unless the whole group does so or is otherwise safe. A neutral character will fight to protect the group as long as it is responsibly safe to do so. If the danger is too great, the character will try to save themselves, even at the expense of the rest of the party. And then finally, a chaotic character might fight the monsters or might run away immediately. Chaotics are, as always, unpredictable. The character may not even care what happens to the rest of the party. But it's also important to remember that lawful doesn't always mean good, and chaos doesn't always mean evil. Now the final box on this character sheet you're going to see is encumbrance and movement. Now I like to use the basic encumbrance rule that you'll find on page 61 of the Red Box Players Manual, where it takes and simplifies this by the type of armor you're wearing and the amount of coins that you are carrying. Now each coin, whether it's copper, gold, platinum, electrum, or silver, weighs 1 CN. So encumbrance is measured in coins, or abbreviated CN. No character can carry more than 2,400 CN or coins. Now if a character is only wearing leather armor or no armor whatsoever, then they start off with a 300 CN encumbrance, and then once they reach 100 or more coins, they would go up to the next level. If a character is wearing a chainmail or plate mail, they would have a base encumbrance of 700 CN with a movement speed of 90 feet for normal and 30 feet during combat or encounter. And then once they get 100 coins or more that they're carrying on their person, they would go up to the next level. It would slow them down. Now encumbrance and movement are very complicated, and a lot of dungeon masters don't even use this mechanic, but if you would like to see some more information and a future video on this, be sure to leave a comment below. So that's how you create a first level character in Basic Dungeons and Dragons, or BECMI. Be sure to take a look at the rest of the BECMI playlist for additional details and more informational videos. And if you'd like to see this video series continue, be sure to leave a comment below. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next.